U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland is asking for more money to fight terrorism. In his budget request for next year, Garland says both foreign and extreme domestic terrorism are accelerating. He needs more funding and says that will be used to investigate and prosecute these terrorists.
Both forms of terrorism are of extraordinary concern to me. We never want to take our eyes off of what happened on 9/11 and of the risks that the country continues to face from foreign origin terrorist attacks on the homeland. Likewise, we have a growing fear of domestic violent extremism and domestic terrorism, and both of those keep me up at night.
And joining us now to talk more about terrorism, both here and abroad, is Javed Ali, former Senior Director for Counterterrorism and National Security and the National Security Council, and also a professor at the University of Michigan. Professor Ali, thanks for coming on tonight.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, first, where do we stand in terms of resources to support these efforts against domestic terrorism?
So what you heard the Attorney General say today is that he's put in a request to increase funding for the department and for FBI, not only to assist with the current increase of cases as a result of January 6th, but then a number that FBI Director Wray announced a couple of weeks ago about a really large number of cases that the FBI is managing on the domestic terrorism front, which he said was over 2,000. And I believe, if I'm quoting him accurately, is that number of 2,000 is a doubling in almost just the last couple of years since he's been director. So on the domestic terrorism front alone, we've seen a significant increase even on beyond the events of January 6th. And this trend is likely only going to intensify going forward, as the Attorney General suggested in his remarks today, too.
And we heard that plea there, a very passionate plea. So what else, what has been the response been like to this request?
So interestingly, the Attorney General's request today is, if you put it in a different framework, is the latest in a number of different steps and measures that different departments and agencies in the U.S. government that have some role in domestic terrorism or domestic violent extremism have announced over the past few months. So we have had the Office of the Director of National Intelligence put out a first ever unclassified threat assessment on domestic terrorism in the U.S. That's unprecedented. We've had the Department of Defense announce the creation of a task force with different lines of effort to understand extremism within the military, which we now know is a serious issue in this far-right terrorism phenomena. We've had the Department of Homeland Security announce more grant money to state and local governments to combat domestic extremism in local communities. They've also announced a similar measure, like the Department of Defense, to look at domestic extremism potentially within the ranks of different individuals within the Department of Homeland Security, and now the Department of Justice funding requests. So there seems to be a concerted effort within the Biden administration to do more on this topic, and you're seeing different departments and agencies put in either these different requests or announce new programs or initiatives.
Yeah, there are many layers to this approach here. And Professor Ali, what else will need to be done to maybe convince those who are skeptical that this funding is necessary right now?
So there's the federal side with the different funding requests or mechanisms that are out there. And again, this will go towards supporting federal efforts, but also state and local efforts as well. And then there's the local communities that, again, this is where these threats are manifesting in local communities across the country. So there needs to be a really strong role for local governments. And hopefully this is where some of the federal money will be applied. But another big missing piece of this equation, or another piece of the equation, is the private sector. And the private sector is really important because when it comes to the radicalization part of this phenomena and how these extremist ideas and beliefs are being promoted or shared or hosted, these are all happening on private sector social media platforms or technology platforms. So they're just as much of a stakeholder in this issue as the federal government is, and state and local governments as well. So getting the private sector more involved in this is also going to be another part of this broad sort of policy challenge that the Biden administration is facing right now.
Professor Ali, we really appreciate you coming on to give us a better idea of what we need to do to fight terrorism, both here at home and abroad. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you.